up here, feel free if you haven't already to introduce yourself in the chat. I see my mom here, so that's exciting to have you here. Thanks. I see lots of folks that I know also from my professional life. So here we go. Give me a moment while you introduce yourself in the chat to get my slides set up. All right. So we're excited to share with you today about our experience of creating a racial identity development curriculum that centers parent wisdom and input throughout the process. And it will be myself, the director of the Firstborn and More Model Office, along with Vanessa and Jitter, both parents who were involved in this process. So you'll hear from all three of us, and then we'll have the opportunity to talk together. So what that's going to look like is a little bit of a history and overview from me from the perspective of the model office, and then both parents' perspectives around participating in creating curriculum and why it's important to involve parents. So New Mexico has a strong history of parent-led and parent-involved initiatives in early childhood. Organizations across New Mexico have partnered and are partnering with parents to support parent input, voice, and parent-led advocacy. Today, we'll just be sharing our experience from this 3-year process of creating this curriculum. It's going to be condensed into an hour-long presentation, so feel free to ask questions of things we leave out or that you have curiosity about. There's more work to be done, and we're excited to share with you today about our journey for this final product. It's a standalone curriculum for early childhood professionals and parents that includes 8 pieces of curriculum created by the model office staff, and then a 38-page e-zine created by and for Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC parents. So here we go. Because this curriculum sits within the larger Firstborn curriculum, I just want to share briefly about us. Many of you know about Firstborn, but some people do not. We've got folks from all over the US joining us for these sessions. So we're a model that started in New Mexico 25 years ago, and then moved when the creator and founder retired in 2018 to the Santa Fe Community College. We have programs in 11 of the 33 counties in New Mexico, and also some northern pueblos and Duluth, Minnesota. You can see about how big we are there and kind of a map of where we are. So we have a curriculum that's about 300 pieces on a lot of different topics for prenatal to 5-year-old age span. And as we created this curriculum, I had not considered it to be a standalone, but as we went through the long process of creating it, it became clear that there was a lot of interest and it would be really relevant outside of the model. So it is a standalone curriculum sitting within the Firstborn model also. It's available in English and Spanish, just like the entire curriculum for Firstborn. And all of our curriculum is really designed to teach staff about early childhood topics and home visiting topics. And it's also intended to be shared orally or in the written page format with parents. So the model was created, like I said, in Silver City by Vicki Johnson. She identifies as a white woman from the Midwest. When she retired, I became the director through Santa Fe Community College. And even though we have the same last name, we are not related, but I also identify as white and I am from the Midwest also. So as we've been developing curriculum and training, we've really been looking at and continue to work towards more diversity in the voices, people, and perspectives that create Firstborn curriculum and training. So like I said, this curriculum was a multi-year, multi-funder project that relied a lot on collaboration between the Firstborn Model Office and another New Mexico nonprofit, Black Health New Mexico. So I was already working on these curriculum pieces when I first met Sunshine Muse, the executive director for Black Health New Mexico. We were introduced by a funder as 2 people who should know each other. And our first conversation was very informal. And as we talked, the topic of this curriculum came up. And Sunshine expressed her frustration at BIPOC parents or organizations not being invited to give input or being asked after the fact on a lot of different kinds of projects. So we both got excited about a collaboration to provide parent input before the curriculum pieces were finalized and shared across the model. So through that process, parents got excited about this topic and said, we want to do more than just edit. So originally we had a group of parents come together, work on giving feedback and editing. And then we moved to, based on their feedback, having them actually create curriculum. So started in December 2019, and we finally finalized the entire curriculum in 2022. So there are these initial 7 pieces of curriculum that were created through the Model Office, and they run for different ages. There's a piece during pregnancy or 0 to 3 months. That's a book list for parents that are interested about race and anti-racist parenting. Then thinking very early on, what does my baby know about race? Research shows that children notice difference from 2, 3, 4 months old in their caregiver versus other people that they see. So they don't know anything about race, but they do notice differences. And so starting to talk about that with parents early, and then thinking as children grow, what can I teach my child about themselves and about other folks in the world, whether I'm white, or fostering a positive racial identity if my child and I identify as BIPOC. Developmentally appropriate ways to talk about race came in toddlerhood, and then talking about preschool and how children are already acting out what they've sort of absorbed from the culture around them. So while the focus of this presentation today is really on the parent created aspect of the curriculum has this initial piece and then what was actually created by parents. I just wanted to highlight the feedback that we got through that initial process with Black Health New Mexico. And this is kind of one of the slides, what it looks like. So they did a sort of visual journaling of the conversations that they held with parents. And the group gave such amazing and helpful feedback. And a lot of it was focused on the curriculum pieces themselves. But this page shows the presentation of their thoughts about the conversation that went further beyond the curriculum, thinking about hiring home visitors that are from the community that they'll be working in, thinking about how home visitors can receive more training and support around checking their own biases. And this was something we'd already been somewhat doing and thinking about in Firstborn, and ended up changing a lot of our training in response to this feedback to add a whole portion around implicit and explicit bias, and helping home visitors to think about power dynamics and identity as they get ready to go out into the field. So this initial group of parents that provided this feedback also initiated the idea of parents creating curriculum. Sunshine and I were eager to collaborate again, and when funding was secured in 2022, a new group of 8 parents was selected and created the following beautiful and relevant 38-page e-zine. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pages from it, a few excerpts. This was created in Flipsnack, so you can actually go through it like a magazine. It turns pages, it's kind of fun. So what you'll be seeing today is pretty static, but it actually is created in a format that a person could go through it like a magazine, but online. So the creators really tied the beauty of New Mexico art and their wisdom and lived experiences to create 7 chapters on topics ranging from mental health to parenting a child with a disability, dealing with stereotypes and racism, and the importance of fathers. So you can see there's a wide range of topics here that parents picked and then created pretty short but really impactful content around. So here is a page pulled from Vanessa's contribution. She'll be talking after me, taking care of your mental health and well-being. And just like other Firstborn curriculum topics, these curriculum creators shared useful tips in bite-sized pieces. So those of you that are trained in the FAN model, we think about sharing a drop of information, and this entire e-zine is lots of wonderful drops. So you can see here, tip number 1, accept help. And here are some drawings from our second presenter after me today, Jitter. She's shared in the e-zine through drawing and writing her experiences as a parent of 5 children, sharing both the struggles and the power that comes from overcoming these challenges. So while the topics and suggestions are universal, the images come from across New Mexico, something here that looks like maybe it was taken in Santa Fe or one of those old traditional adobe walls, to cornfields north of Gallup on the Navajo Nation, and here writing about fathers and the importance of father participation. And the last page of the e-zine shows, not photoshopped, an amazing sunset above the mountains from New Mexico. So throughout the e-zine, there's amazing content, but also just visually, it's a really beautiful piece to go through. And I found it very inspiring and connecting. I'm a parent also, and just hearing about other parents' triumphs and struggles and ideas was really uplifting to me. So in creating this e-zine and the accompanying 7 pieces of curriculum, we used a lot of collaboration. So thank you to Nicole Morris and Sunshine Muse from Black Health New Mexico and all the parents who participated in suggestions and creation, as well as 2 local New Mexico foundations who supported this project from start to finish, Thornburg Foundation and Brindle Foundation. Having funders support this type of collaboration to involve parents is crucial. We're still taking next steps at the Model Office, working towards more ways to involve parents. We translated last fall the Community Health Worker Home Visiting certificate course into Spanish, and many of the folks who take that class in English and in Spanish are parents. It's a great way to build up people who are ready to be home visitors in your community and help parents get free access to 10.5 higher ed credits. So we always welcome parents into that class. And it's usually a mixture of professionals and parents each semester. We also are working through a process of an equity scorecard to really look at our curriculum, the entire curriculum, through an equity lens, and then make edits and improvements based on that. And Andrea and I and another person from our office will be talking about that in the session on Wednesday if you want to learn more about that. And we've got this symposium now. So that's what we're working on. And I'll put the slide up at the end again so you can see our contact information if you're interested in anything that the Firstborn Model Office has to offer. And I will turn it over to Vanessa for her contribution and sharing, and I'll catch up on the chat, and we'll take it from here. Vanessa, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Like she said, my name is Vanessa Island. I was a parent advisor with Identity Development through Firstborn. I am currently located in Alamogordo, New Mexico. That's more down south in New Mexico, in case you don't know. Kind of a small town, kind of coming up though. I just want to take a quick second just to thank those who came out. We are super pumped for the work that we've done and to be able to get the opportunity to talk to you all. So I appreciate you all coming and joining us for this hour. So I do identify as a BIPOC parent. I primarily identify as Black. I do have 3 kids. They're all mixed as well. So they got the curls from me. So there's no denying that we belong in that little group. But my son was actually a part of the home visiting program. I had my first kid at age 19. I had turned 19 15 days before he was born. So it was right on the cusp of adulthood. But we got introduced into a home visiting program out in Las Cruces, New Mexico, actually. And then as he got older, we then transitioned to a home base. But we had first got referred to the home visiting program because he was developmentally delayed it was probably about 9 months when they first caught that he was having some issues. He couldn't start to grab onto objects, pull himself up, do basic stuff that most kids should do. Um, and at that time, like, it was hard. With it being my first kid, I didn't have much experience, but I thought I was doing everything right. I was trying my hardest, at least, to do everything right. So when they first told me, like, well, yeah, we're going to refer you to this and they're going to come check up and help and all that, I was like crushed, actually. I felt a little hurt inside because I was trying so hard. But that entailed to a rocky start with me and the home visitor. Um, I may be a little prideful, maybe, and it was hard to take advice at first and to accept that maybe I don't know everything and someone else outside can come in and let me know, like, hey, areas of improvement, not necessarily a bad thing. Um, So overall, in the program, it was absolutely a positive. We did have a few negative things, and that's primarily what led me to help with creating the curriculum because while there were so many great things, and while I would do it again with my next son, if I had the chance, there was also some things that I definitely felt like could have improved. Um, Let me see. So my son actually deals with autism. He has autism. Um, so when he was younger, we didn't find out till like 3, 4. But when he first started in the program, we couldn't figure out, like, sometimes very resistant to lessons, to even just touch, sound. If we tried to like play some little instrument, something, he would have an absolute fit. But with the program, we had like required things that we had to at least try. And it would just set him off sometimes. And that for me was very hard. Watching something discomfort my kid was definitely a hard thing for me to do. And it was one thing I just was like, well, do we have to? Like, if I could already anticipate that a struggle was going to occur while we were trying to do this, I would try to avoid it. But there were times my home visitor would be like, well, it's required, it's required. And I'm like, but why? That was one of the biggest things that caused me discomfort. Something else that caused me discomfort for some reason was just like feeling pressured. And I know, like, we shouldn't be. I know I've had the talk and everything, but I would always panic. I remember like panicking before my home visitor would come over, like, oh, well, let me put stuff away. Let me pick up trash. Let me make sure my kid's not covered in food. Just small things like that were always in the back of my mind. Like, I don't want to seem unfit as a parent. I want to seem like I'm giving my kid the best that I can, making sure his environment is the best it could be. But it was always something that would nag at the back of my mind. And that was probably my two biggest issues that I had during the program that I was in. So I first learned about this curriculum reform kind of thing through a mutual party of Black Health New Mexico. They're called Bold Futures. They work on reproductive justice here in New Mexico, and they work at a legislative level. So Heather Smith, she works through Bold Futures. She introduced me to Sunshine over at Black Health New Mexico, and they kind of got me started with the program. We had a really amazing lady, Nicole Morris. She helped us put this whole thing together. She sat in through all of our meetings. She put in extra hours outside of our meetings, a lot of extra hours. And she was always just very supportive, even if it wasn't something that was relevant to making the zine. She was always there to help us out. So it was an awesome collaboration between them and us. Um, Let me see. So like Tekla was saying, we were part of an 8-person or 8-parent team making this zine, and we were all in different ranges of the parenting process. We had some expecting, we had some new babies, we had older babies, we had children. We had all the levels in there to represent as much as we could. And let me see. I just got sidetracked. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me see. If I could just quickly name out some of the other members, just because they didn't get to be here with us today. And we just want to make sure that their pieces are getting uplifted as well. So we had Maya and Nish, who wrote beautiful and helpful pieces on parenting tips, tricks, and coping tools for parents. And then Do's and Don'ts as BIPOC parents. And then Jitter, who will be speaking next. She has a piece about navigating the difficult state and local systems while being a single parent with her own struggles. Following that, we have a wonderful and informative piece by Perla and Diana on dealing with stereotyping and racism. And then Aspen, she's a mother and a doula who wrote a piece on doula support for birthing folks. And then last but not least, we have Zach, representing the fathers in the challenging system. He wrote a powerful piece for men in this system called Fathers Belong Here Too. I had 2 pieces in the zine called Taking Care of Your Mental Health and Well-Being, and then Parenting a Child with a Disability. So I wrote the first piece because a parent's mood greatly impacts their kids. And if a parent is struggling, a kid is likely to be struggling as well. My oldest son had got to see me at my rock bottom, honestly. Me and my husband were both working a ton. Our relationship was strained. I would just work and then come home and kind of just shut down. I would drink more often than I should. I would even resort to self-harm at sometimes. I had the worst depression. And that kind of ran off on him because I didn't have that time and energy to put into him. I was so just sucked into my own world. And my home visitor, I didn't verbally say any of this stuff because I didn't want to lose my kid, of course, but she kind of saw a decline in involvement in him and me, both of us. And she actually reached out to me one day. She referred me to a counseling service, and they helped actually get me into counseling and get my life back on track so that I could be there for my son and I could do better for us and our future. So it was an amazing experience, to say the least. It all came together at some point, but it really was impactful. So I do say the negatives, but you all really are lifesavers in someone's life. So thank you for doing that. And then the next piece I wrote on parenting a child with a disability was to help inspire other parents. One of the hardest things I had to learn through my son's disability was advocating. It was even harder being a young parent because I'm still working on finding my own voice. So I'm trying to find my voice, but also be my son's voice. So that was so difficult, learning I need to stand up. I need to be the one now. I can't just call my mom all the time. Oh man. But sorry. Whew. So advocating for me came by gaining knowledge, whether it's from my home visitor, or whether it's from my mom, or whether it's just from friends. I mean, even random people on the street, anyone can give you knowledge. And that has helped me not be taken advantage of. That's helped me get my kid the services he needs. That's helped me do all these things just because I had that support and had that knowledge. And through my piece, I'm hoping other parents will realize that they have a voice too, and they can use their voice to amplify their kids, and for their needs. But that's all I really have today. Thank you all again for joining us and listening to my little spiel. And I would like to pass it on to Jitter.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I think you're amazing. And I had so much fun working on this project with you. Thank you to everybody who's here today. So my name is Jitter. I am originally from South Dakota. I am Oglala Lakota, Mexican and white. And yeah, so I grew up, my mom was a single mom with 7 kids, and there was a lot of domestic violence and substance abuse in my home. And I grew up with a mom that did the best that she knew how with not very many resources. So I feel really grateful today that we have home visiting and therapy and different family services available for families that are in need. So that's where I'm from. It's a little bit about my story. So I have 5 kids, and my oldest is Riley. I got pregnant when I was 16, and I had her when I was 17. And then I had 4 other children: August, Adonijah, Mara, and Amelia. And they are my world. I love my kids so much. So a little bit more about my story. I left South Dakota and was homeless for a while with my daughter, traveling around the country and trying to figure out where I wanted a safe place to be. And I ended up in New Mexico. And when I got here, there was all these really amazing services in Santa Fe, like youth shelters, home visiting programs. And so I really wanted to raise my daughter here. And I was able to get established with the help of different services throughout town. And I ended up getting into a very violent, domestic violent relationship, and had the rest of my 4 children. And with the help of all of you, I was able to get out of that after about 5 years. And my kids were able to receive services and support that they really needed through Santa Fe Rape Crisis Center, and home visiting was incredibly influential. I couldn't have done it without my home visitor. She went to the women's shelter with me. She went to doctor's appointments. She really helped me to self-advocate. And like Vanessa, I had previous home visitors that weren't a good fit for me, where I had some negative experiences. But once I found the right people to help me advocate for myself and my children, we were able to really thrive and grow and heal in ways that I could never see coming. So where we are today is a lot different from where we were when I was a single mom, and I had my 3 youngest were in diapers, actually, and that's a lot. So, and you all do a lot working with families, and a lot of times different services come in with kind of a curriculum, like a to-do list, right, of what we need to get through. And that's really hard when you are a BIPOC parent who is single and doesn't have a lot of family support. So I think what was really helpful for me is when the home visitor would come in and just sit with me. I was really in PTSD. I wasn't very functional. I was really scared. And I couldn't do a lot of the checklist stuff, right? So my home visitor helped me to do basic things like, how am I going to find childcare? How am I going to pay rent this month? How am I going to keep my children safe, right? So you guys do so much more than just meeting, like developmental stages that kids have, right? You guys are kind of like superheroes, like moms. So yeah, I had to learn how to navigate a lot of systems and resources. And another thing I wanted to touch on is that I wrote down here in my notes was rebuilding trust within Indigenous communities and why it's important to decolonize support networks for Native families. So historically, outsiders coming into Native families was to take our children. So that was my grandma's generation. She was raised in boarding school, and a few of my uncles were actually killed in boarding school. So there's a really major distrust within my own family, my own Indigenous community, where it's really, really hard to have that trust and not think, oh, these people are going to take my children. These people are not here to help me. So how do we bring down those walls of separation so that we're meeting Indigenous families' needs, which are different, you know, everybody's cultural backgrounds and needs and what they're needing. So just assessing what is needed, or what is the top priority for that family. And you know, for us, for instance, we were struggling with poverty and PTSD and trauma and homelessness, and being a single parent. And I was also struggling with addiction for a long time. That's kind of how I coped and masked a lot of the things that I was going through. So what are we up to now? We are, I'm actually working with a really cool Indigenous nonprofit, and I get to work with families. I get to we put on huge festivals, and it's a really fun community event. In the summertime, my kids are in therapy, and one of my sons just graduated speech therapy and occupational therapy. And that's not to say that we still don't have our struggles. I have a kiddo that has ADHD and is really high needs. So I still have a home visitor today that actually comes from PMS and helps me with parenting tools, because kids that are on the spectrum are really difficult, and it's really can be really challenging. So I still need support today. My kids are also in a program called Reading Class, so they get reading support. And I think that parenting is such a communal thing. Like they say, it takes a village, right? It takes all of you. It takes us parents. It takes trust. It takes rebuilding trust. And so another thing I wanted to touch on, I hope I'm not boring you all, is, you know, just helping families to reach their goals. And I think that that looks different for everybody. And how can we approach this with compassion and understanding that everybody doesn't have the same resources or goals, right? So yeah, our community is very important, and I cannot do what I'm doing today and be raising my beautiful, amazing, goofy, silly, wild, crazy kids if it wasn't for my community knowledge. And I think it's really important. Oh, and after that relationship, I got with my partner Josh, and I actually knew him from middle school. He was my best friend's brother, and we ended up getting together a few years ago, and he moved down here to New Mexico and was helping me raise my beautiful family, and plays Pokemon with the kids. And he's also involved with the home visiting programs and counseling. So life looks a lot different today. And I'm really grateful for that. And I really, really appreciate all of you being here. And I think that's all I got. So if you all have any questions, I would love to hear from you all. And thanks for letting me be part of this today.
Thank you to you both. So we're opening it up here for questions and comments. Again, I know a lot of people are doing really interesting work across New Mexico. You're here because you're interested in this topic. So we'd love to learn from you, or have conversation, or take questions that are specific to either Vanessa and Jitter and their experience of making this curriculum together, or anything for me. Put things in the chat or get really brave and unmute. Tell us. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I just have to say, thank you very much for involving parents. Thank you. I mean, to these two parents who spoke today. I mean, sometimes this is what's missing in the development of programs and the administration of programs. I was at a training once and this stuck with me. Leaders need to be in proximity to the people that ultimately are being affected. And you guys are doing that with this curriculum. And that's going to make it, I'm sure it has made it so much more effective. Sometimes decisions are made over here at this higher level, so-called higher level, and they're out of touch with what's really needed. So by you guys helping create this curriculum, you're giving the needed feedback to improve systems. And I just have to commend you all. It was very heartwarming. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And I see a comment in the chat from HD. I don't know if you want to say more out loud or if you're, well, otherwise I can read your chat so people can see it.
Yeah, I'm able to. I'm sorry, I'm not
Thanks.
able to turn my camera on right now,
That's
but
okay.
I think it's just really important that both of you touched on the fact that parents or families or caregivers, particularly like BIPOC caregivers, I think are constantly criminalized for trying to, seek support. And so as both of you talked about, there's interpersonal aspects to that, and there's a lot of structural and historical violence behind that. And that makes it incredibly not just hard, but dangerous to kind of be vulnerable and share those examples. So I just wanted to really appreciate both of you for kind of trusting us with those stories and for turning that experience into something that can improve home visiting for all of us. That actually, it's a really big deal and it made me really emotional. So just thank you both for doing that.
Thank you so much for your comment. I feel really emotional. I was tearing up for Vanessa speaking too. So thank you so much. It's a lot.
Other questions or comments, thoughts?
Just jump in again.
Yeah,
It's
thanks.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, both of your stories really speak to the complexity of the work and how it needs to be individualized. And we talk about meeting parents where they're at, and how necessary that is, and how that comes into conflict sometimes with other requirements from funders. You know, I think one of you mentioned it wasn't a good day to go over what the home visitors agenda was, and you needed them to be with you. And this is the foundational piece of this work. And when we think in terms of infant and early childhood mental health, really that's the core of it. And without that, how can you take on new information without a sense of this person is with me, they care about me? That's where it starts, in those relationships. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Vanessa or Jitter, do you want to add anything or?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I really love what you said about that relationship building, right? And I also see a question on here. So it says, what do you think would be most helpful to parents to put parents at ease when they first meet their home visiting team? So that's a really great question. So I think I can only answer for myself, but I think what really helped me is you know, there's so much paperwork that you guys have to do, right, for your services, but I think it would be really nice with the first initial meeting to just have it be a little bit more personable and kind of like, thank you for trusting me that we're coming into your home. You know, that's, you and your children are like a blessing, right? Like it is an honor for me to be in your space, for you allowed to be in. So I think immediately just to identify as a guest, right? Even though you're offering services and support for families, to really give families their autonomy and their power over their space and their children. So just giving them a lot of dignity, like you would going into anybody's home, you know, not for work, right? And coming in and really having a lot of compassion and just sitting down at the table and maybe saying, what do you need? What are your biggest challenges right now? How can I support you? I'm here to support you, right? And I think you all do that anyway. So just really coming in very non-judgmental, with a lot of compassion and a lot of room to grow, right? Because we're learning from each other. Like one things that work with another family may not completely not work for me and my family. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that was just my thought. And just really seeing what the families need, what they're up for, and what you can help with, you know, whether that's, hey, maybe today's not the day to go over if your child can stack blocks. Maybe your first priority right now is you don't have any food. And that's really important. So let's make some phone calls. Let me be your advocate. Let me advocate for you today, right? And it also feels really good to come in and help people in their homes, you know? So that's all I have. Thanks.
Did you want to add something, Vanessa? I'd seen you unmuted for a minute. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, like, what Jitter was saying about about what Joe had said, and then following onto the question. Honestly, like Jitter was saying, it takes time to like build that sense of trust, and especially inviting someone into your house, that's a new level of trust for people. So I'd like to just like throw out a suggestion, like maybe the first visit is not at the house. Like maybe it's at a public space or at a designated office or something, just so like we can get initial, well, like kids say, vibe, like just to see like how are we mending together? Like how are we gonna connect effectively so that that bridge does already get established before like the serious stuff comes in. Not that any of this is not serious, but like just an initial connection before the full trust fall comes in.
Thank you. And I see, Olga, your question. I just wanted to add one of the things that we like to, that I train on and that we talk about in Firstborn that I like, as is an initial question in the first visit at some point of like, what's important for me to know about you to be the best home visitor possible, which gives somebody the chance to talk about like how identities that are obvious or not obvious, who they are, what's important to them. So I love Jitter's question too. And I just think a couple of those really open, well-placed questions are really helpful. Which, Olga.
Hey everyone. So I agree with Vanessa, with Jitter, and it's so important to know that we are at the client's home. And like Vanessa said, really the first encounter, it should be where the client feels more comfortable. If she feels more comfortable at McDonald's, fine, let's meet at McDonald's. Walmart, I've done that. In Mesquite, whichever little store you want me to walk with you, I'll be there. Just so that they can see that we are there to support. And yes, during that first visit, we're gonna do the framing of what's our job and what's expected from us and what we expect from them. we'll do it during that visit. And that will make it much easier for the client to really see us in person at their home and really know that our job is not there to spy on them, but really to support them. And yes, we are mandate reporters. That being said, I'm not here to spy on you. Okay, so just to let them know and let them know that, and that's something that I love about the teams that I work with, is that when you're transparent with your clients, they are transparent back with you. And they share, and they will let you know. And they will let you know stuff that they don't tell their doctors or their nurses, and you're like, oh, you should really talk about it with them, but yeah, they will. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Olga. I want to mention that I do see a couple of comments, questions in the chat that I think sort of relate to each other. Katrin asked how to use this curriculum. And then Jackie followed up kind of saying like, this is across models. Totally agree with that. And is an important aspect of what we do. So I wanted to take the last couple of minutes that we have together here just to say a little bit about how this curriculum might be used as a way to hopefully sort of start a conversation with many of you who are passionate about this across the state, and see, what we might want to say here and what anything Jitter or Vanessa that you want to add. But like I said, the curriculum that we use in Firstborn, and this was created in that sort of way, which is very similar to all home visiting curriculum, is it gives some information. It has some opportunity for reflection, and I see it as a standalone piece. So my hope is that it can be used to train people as a way to think together about like, how do we bring this up in visits? What are parents asking? This came out of home visitors saying to me, and me hearing parents ask questions about racial identity development that home visitors really weren't prepared to address. And also hearing home visitors say that they either perpetuated through not understanding or not knowing some kind of bias or harm, or received that from a family based on their identities. And again, I was like, I never got trained on that. I don't know if other people are. I've been around for a while, so maybe it's happening now, but I really felt like we could do better for the professionals working with families and for families themselves. So for the curriculum itself, my hope is that it's a resource for everyone to use within their programs, to use as a conversation with staff and in staff training across systems and with families. And I'll just say, like, for me, I created the parts with my team that we created the model office with a lot of intentionality and care, and they are not as beautiful and as wonderful as what the parents created. There's like a level of heart that's there, because I feel like for me, I always feel like I have to kind of stand behind this like screen of professionalism. Like, I'm a parent too, I've got these passions, but I need to show up in this certain way. And I feel like having parents speak directly to each other, it helps. I mean, the e-zine could be used as a way to share, like, look at what some parents have created. What's your reaction to this? What does this mean to you? And for me as a parent, it was so powerful to read. Like, every time I look at it or even think about it, I actually get chills. I'm like, it's so beautiful. It has great information. And for me, it just landed differently than a lot of the curriculum that I read. Even if I enjoy it, it just didn't have the same emotional impact. So to Katrin's question, I feel like there's so many different ways this curriculum could be used, which is why we're sort of starting here with some presentations. And my hope is that through, engaging the other 6 parents, if they're interested, Vanessa and Jitter, future training opportunities that involve parents, ways to just get this out there. But I'm totally open to ideas also, but I have big visions for this curriculum. And we're going to be using it in Firstborn and more. And then we're hoping lots of folks across the state and beyond will also use it. Any visions, Vanessa or Jitter, that you want to share of, like, as you were creating it, how you hoped it might be used or not used, or any thoughts on that?
Just like this, just to help educate people. bridge our communities, right? Our families together so that people can get the services that they need. That's what I wanted. I wanted to know that other single parents out there that you don't have to hide. You can get the support that you need. So that was my mission, is to you know, and if other opportunities come up where we can do like parent-led trainings, you know, for home visitors, I would love to be a part of that.
I guess for me, since we didn't have like too much hands in like the nitty-gritty curriculum stuff, I don't know any technical jargon, but that's fine. I guess with like the zine, I just kind of like was thinking back to what I needed to hear when I was in that stage of life. Like I was just more thinking like, well, chances are maybe there is someone else in the same spot that I was in, and maybe they need to hear this as well. So for me, it was just like, maybe it'll be a silent voice for someone that maybe they don't like need to read it all the time, but maybe they just stumble upon it one day and it gives them the strength to do the change, be the change.
Yeah, so as we wrap up, I see Jackie, your question again, this is its own piece. So we are redesigning our website right now. And if you're interested in purchasing or utilizing this curriculum, the e-zine and the pieces that we wrote, it all comes together. It will be available for anybody that's interested anywhere soon. I don't have an exact date, but if you're on our list for our monthly newsletter, or if you're getting follow-up from today's date, as things happen, for those of you that registered with your interest for today, we'll make sure that you know that the website is up with information you can find there about how to connect with this curriculum and how to bring it to your program outside of the Firstborn and More model. Yeah, it is available to everyone. It's embedded within our model, and then we're using it as its little thing to go out there into the world and hopefully continue this conversation and support people. Any other last questions or comments? Market it to ECECD. Yes, thank you. I'll do that. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you, Jitter. Thank you, Vanessa. Just really appreciate. I will stay on if anybody has questions. Maybe Andrea, you could put our website in again in my email, just to, if people want to grab that out of the chat. I really welcome anybody to reach out, have conversation. This is something I'm really passionate about, and would love to talk to you about it. So feel free to stay on and with more questions or comments, or hop off if you're on to the next thing today. And thank you.